Yeah.
So, good morning, Ryan,
Good
and
morning.
thank you. Or good evening. It's your time, right? It's
Yeah,
10 p.m. right now.
it is. Yeah.
So, I want to do this interview and talking with you because I'm really excited about it. I got to, yeah, it's the first time that I see you, hear you,
Yeah.
listen, being, really in touch with you. And I got to see you on Helen's YouTube on the Serpentine, and where you made this great, immense dialogue, and you shared your thoughts and your visions and you opened up different kinds of consciousness, ways how to see or what's the what's going on right now and how we can see it or feel it, and you do it with your work, and she's doing it with her work with the cards. So I was really impressed about the setup you did, and it was really deep and but also like the change or not change, it's not the right word, it's the communication between you and to share your thoughts. And I think that's so much important to share different kind of perspective, how we experienced or how we felt something. So that's why I thought I would love to do this experience with you, not to know you and to ask you how you feel and to show the world a little bit more of Ryan because I don't know you at all. And yes, but yeah, Helen is here too. So I was thinking about if Helen wants to say something too, to, open up this space with us. And because she was or she is the initiator.
Initiate.
Sorry for the
Kind of.
English. Yeah.
Kind of yes and no. If you're talking about how Ryan and I connected, Ryan actually contacted me, so he was really the initiator
Oh,
of it in the beginning.
okay.
So and said that like some of the sort of readings that I did on my channel, I kind of put a bit of a fire under him, so he wanted to explore his spirituality on YouTube and everything, and then he started this wonderful channel that does the I Ching, which is a system that I am familiar with but no expert on, nothing like Ryan, but I have a lot of respect for. I think it's a very good system. So we got to know each other. We collabed actually on sort of like some readings. And then we talked for ages, didn't we, Ryan, about like, gee, it'd be good to have something where we could have a dialogue and we could bring people in and we could talk to them. And then I think I kept putting it off because I was busy, but we were always talking about it, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I came across Helen's channel and I was really doing a lot of my own I Ching readings at the time. And the way she is just like a razor blade, in my opinion, with uh, very little holding to one side or the other. She likes to say it how it is and is really good at that. And that impressed me a lot. And also she has a little bit of that kind of motivational or uh, yeah, just a little bit of a way to lift you up and make you feel like you have something to share, or if you do, it burns a fire inside of you so that it gets harder and harder not to do that. And what I was sitting on, working on with myself, I was noticing a ton of transformation that I was going through using the I Ching. So definitely she was instrumental in inspiring me to not just use it as an inward practice for myself, but turning it outward as well and sharing that with anyone else who might, gain value out of it.
Wow.
But yeah.
So I'm
So here
really
we
excited.
are.
Yes, and so that's why I just wanted to, because I saw you, Helen, and then I got to get to know, well, to see Ryan, and and I just want to be getting more in touch with you, Helen, and with you, Ryan, first of all, and to show not only like the spiritual and consciousness way, but also to show the, human. We're all humans. We have all the same themes. It doesn't matter where we come from. And that's why that's my vision, to open up the bridges around the world, that we are all on this process. And it doesn't matter in what kind of environment we are, in what kind of status or work place, or that we all have the same kind of stuff going on, just in a different view or perspective. Matters how, we are getting connected with the humans. And that's the connection I would love to do, the connection of the whole world, to see each other, to listen. And I do think the most important to understand the other one, why he is doing that, or why he is thinking that, why he is in this surrounding. You have to be, personal, and really talk and really feel and ask the right questions. I want to listen to you, and I want to know you. And that's why I I really love to hear where you're coming from and what you're doing. And yeah, probably you can start just regular when you were born. So when you were born, and how does it feel like, and what kind of surrounding and parents or close friends or really important persons. And probably you can show us a little bit how you grew up, and be like the most important um, um, situations where you still really think or feel about it, which really was touching you. Yeah.
Can I just
Yeah.
jump in just before you start with that, Ryan, and say that I didn't plan to sort of be here in the interview because I want to give Ryan and you the sort of privacy to have the conversation. So I will step out now, but just before I go, I just want to say what you said, there, and then also what you said in the original email to me about building bridges and community and connecting with people is very much one of the reasons we're really excited about doing this. Is it's very much what Ryan and I were talking about, and what I believe also from my human resources days. So it's I think a very, very important thing. So I wish you a fun interview. I look forward to when you're going to do it with me, Anke. But in the meantime, have fun, and I will just leave the meeting so that you can get on with it. So see you later.
Thank you, Helen. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. So,
So I was born in July 18th, 1983 in Portland, Oregon. And my parents were in a Christian band. And so I grew up with music all the time around me, and they would perform concerts and all kinds of stuff. They had like a Peter, Paul, and Mary kind of a vibe to their music. It was very peaceful and nice. And so music has largely been influential in my life in a big way. We moved around a bit. I jumped school to school to school quite frequently. But I think something that shaped me fairly significantly, and still to this day does, but that feel of being pulled from community to community to community. And um, I got good at meeting lots of different types of people and being okay with all kinds of different groups of people. They had this thing called camp meeting, which is a Christian event where a bunch of different groups get together in the summer and there's different speakers. But it ended up being, and I didn't realize that this was different about me, but it ended up being that I knew a lot of the people there, and the different groups didn't know each other, but they started pointing that out a little bit, that I kind of knew a lot of different types of people. In school, I liked to hang out with people that were a little bit more obscure, that weren't maybe as popular, but also the popular kids too. Um, but I didn't really feel the necessity to stay away from people because other people thought they were weird. For instance, I myself, I feel quite weird, so that might be why. But what is a normal person, I suppose? My parents I think largely what held them together was the music and what brought them together in the beginning. So their marriage dissolved at a point, and later my mom developed Crohn's disease. Well, she had Crohn's disease all of her life when I was growing up, but she passed away from that. At that time, it was when I had my first kid. Um, she was alive for my daughter coming into the world, but she passed when my daughter was about 1.5 years old. And at that point, our family largely kind of split up the way I perceive it. My mom was probably holding the family together, and she was pretty much the heart and soul of our little community. And that was a blow for me. Much later, though, um, I got involved with a group uh, that was a lot more fundamentalist Christian group where we met in homes and we weren't supposed to have uh, friends outside of this church. And we could have friendly acquaintances, but not friends. And so my world continued to get smaller and smaller. Um, but while I was there, the guy that introduced me to his form of Christianity, we'll put it that way, which it was nothing, you know, scary or anything, but a little bit chauvinistic and uh, not something I would join now, looking back. But my wife at the time, I was concerned for her soul. I am not a Christian now, but at the time I was concerned that, you know, she would die and wouldn't make it into heaven. And so this guy that we met at a Starbucks, he introduced himself and he offered to prove that the Bible was true. And we took him up on it, and that introduced us to a series of Bible uh, meetings in his home with his wife, and lasted over a year long. But the way he presented the material made it very much seem like science itself was proving this book to be true. And it wasn't until later that I got really highly invested in learning to research things myself. I purchased this program called Logos Bible Software, and it allows you to do kind of like a Google search through all of the books that you purchase on this platform. And so it becomes very easy to start studying very, very, very thoroughly yourself. And through that process, to my satisfaction, I pretty much dissolved my belief in the exact uh, physical events, all of which being described in the Bible as happening exactly the way that the Bible portrays them. We'll put it that way. And due to that, it opened up a world for me, but that really collapsed something that I thought that it was difficult when my mom passed away, but um, losing my Christianity, as it were, really, really, really put me in a scary place. Uh, I didn't realize how foundational that was to my life, that even my mom passing away wasn't as big of a deal as that. Uh, I'm sure that it was in a way, and maybe it was just the stepping to the point where finally you're losing anything to hold on to that you have internally to gauge your world in. And you already know going in that people are going to pass away. When I was a kid, I was nervous that when my mom would die multiple times because she would go into the hospital for a week at a time. And each time that happened, I was always afraid. So I guess at a young age, I had the concept that, you know, she wasn't going to be here forever,
Mm.
obviously, and that could come sooner than later. Um, but losing my understanding of the cosmos and an idea of a benevolent deity um, taking care of things for me and trying to make sure that things turned out all right was very terrifying. Um, Before I dissolved things entirely. Um, I was still involving myself in different Christian groups, one of which was less fundamental in terms of uh, just focusing on how to be right about every verse in the Bible, for instance, and more focused on the Holy Spirit. And so we would have what now I consider to be like meditations, where we would wait on the Spirit, for instance. And during one of these periods, it was a weekend trip where we would go away and study a bunch of stuff and all wait in silence. And they would have incense set up and different stations you could go to and sit and meditate at. And they would have little prompts of Bible verses and whatnot. But at this event, I had a vision while I was at one of those prompts. And it happened after I read something in this little prompt. It basically asked you to ask God um, what you were here to do. And that frustrated me because that was the question that I had my entire life is why, or is there a purpose for my life? What am I here to do? That kind of thing. So I got very frustrated by that question. And I said, no, I refuse to ask that question. Um, I've asked that my entire life. That's how my life is geared. I'm pointed downhill with my skis and my little poles tucked under my arm, tucking downhill as fast as I can, trying to find that out. And I can just go to this one weekend event and read a little prompt, and I'm going to be answered that question. Uh, so I basically gave it up. I said, I'm done with that. And in the giving up of that, I don't know what exactly happened, but I had my eyes closed and I could see from a side angle, um, like an escalator going up into the clouds. And I saw myself from that angle riding up this escalator, and there was these wings that were white with blue dots coming down the escalator arms as I was going up. And then when the person in the video, or the vision, went to the top of the clouds, all of a sudden I was there looking through my own eyes at this table with a little glass on top of it. And it was as though a voice asked me, will you drink this cup? And I said yes. And I was told, or thought that I heard someone say, they would leave a cup at different stations so that you could drink if you felt the need to do so. So I opened my eyes in the middle of that and looked around and didn't see a cup. And I closed my eyes again and I was right back there again. And so I swallowed my spit and I pretended to drink a cup. And the next thing that happened, there was like a flash and swirls of blue and white. And I saw somebody holding an old man, and the old man was like naked and about to die, is what it looked like. And I didn't know what that meant. And it was like I was looking over my shoulder holding this old man, and then it flashed white and blue again, those kind of flashing scenarios. And the next thing was looking over the shoulder of someone that I interpreted as Jesus holding a baby. And I could just see the baby's face because I was looking over the shoulder. And I asked, who's the baby? And I didn't hear anything. And then I said, is the baby me? And then I felt as though that voice said yes at that point. And then the baby's face transformed into Jesus's face, and everything went white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, and then it was done. And when I opened my eyes and felt like moving, I could tell that I felt like spaghetti, like my limbs felt like spaghetti. I had to gather myself a little bit. But anyway, moving from that experience to later on, when I had the sensation that the things that I was studying through them. The more I studied, the more I found holes in everything that I was learning. And so the absolute truth of every line in scripture, and the sense that certain things conflicted with each other, and the perspective of various scholars that I consider to be top in their field, pulling this thing apart, I realized that I was not going to be able to approach this thing strictly intellectually. And what I was able to bring out of my Christian experience that has been something that's carried on today is that kind of waiting on the spirit kind of vibe. I meditate and put myself in a place where, I guess, in a shamanic perspective, you're at that cusp between sleep state, that lucid, what do they call it? That, anyway,
Well, you can
I'm sure I'll think
don't
of it
ask
at
me
some
about
point.
the English word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't
um,
help it, but I do know what are you talking about. It's a really uh, where you're there, but you're not there because
yeah,
you're I would say it's like
liminal,
being
liminal
connected,
space.
Yeah.
It's liminal space is what I was thinking of. And anyway, I realized that I could still connect in the same kind of way, regardless of viewing it as the Christian God or not. And so the thing that I felt that I lost, I never really essentially did. There's a connection that multiple religions consider a certain thing and put a face on it, but many of them uh, realize the silliness of overly attaching to any image you could give to
Mm.
that concept of the divine. And that if you have something super concrete in Buddhism, it says if you meet Buddha on the path, kill him, right? And in Judaism, uh, they wouldn't speak the name of God. They would put the consonants of Yahweh, YHWH, but they wouldn't pronounce the name because that was so sacred that no human mouth should be able to utter it. So I believe in a lot of different cultures, their concept of knowing what is behind this all is something we can't quantify intellectually. And I think in Taoism, what I eventually researched out, I met a guy, he was my ex-wife's brother, and he told me that he met a guy that manifested an apple in his hand in front of him. And
Mm.
he said, he was holding out his hand to him and there was nothing there. And he said, "Do you see this apple?" And he looked again and there was an apple there. I wasn't there, but it fascinated me because of how much I could tell he wasn't making it up. But he saw an apple all of a sudden that this guy was holding, and this guy was highly shamanic, and he was teaching him different ways. And his son apparently went the left-hand path, and he said that was really difficult for him because Jared, my ex's brother, um, he apparently was going down that way. So the guy said, "Well, you could do that, but that's a difficult course to go down." And even asked my son, and he said, "Is that true?" And he affirmed it. But anyway, um, he told me that that guy's system of divination that he used, if he wanted to find something out, he would use tarot. And if he wanted to learn things that were on a higher level, that were maybe a little bit more important, he would use runes. And then the highest of highest, he would use the I Ching.
Okay.
And I didn't know any of those really that well at the time. Um, but I also learned later that something that you should do as a magician or a shaman or somebody that wants to breach the veil and get in there and see if you can work with the Tao, if you want to call it that,
Mm.
is to um, have a divination practice. That was one of the first things. And then to pick a field that you felt comfortable in, that you didn't necessarily have to buy fully into, because there's dangers in that. Obviously, if you accept every single detail of any culture, religion, um, the good ones, in my opinion, are the ones that are like walking through the woods and erasing the trail behind you, sweeping up your steps so that they disappear. And so the way a lot of sages talk, or uh, teachers, is that all the words that they say are lies, essentially. Um, but that brought me into the I Ching eventually.
Mm.
I kind of split ways with my family when I lost my religion. And um, it made it more and more necessary for me getting into more of like a hermit's life. I eventually left the cult group, basically, is what I view it as. Um, and if that wasn't restricted enough, it felt like I was losing my family and everybody into this space that I had never been in before, where all my connections were dissolving, essentially. And so it became very important for me to be able to get some sort of form of foundation underneath me as fast as possible. And so I very quickly turned to the I Ching for that. And I used meditation in combination with the I Ching to see if what I was doing in my meditation work and the kind of consciousness spaces that I was entering were being verified. In other words, um, is my perception of my progress, quote unquote, uh, can I look behind the curtain through the I Ching and get some verification if what I feel is happening is happening? So in a way, I was kind of uh, balancing out my inner states with the perspective of what the I Ching was bringing forward. Learning later that some of the highest Taoist sages said that the I Ching shouldn't even be used for a divination practice, because what it was meant for and what it's best used for is for inner alchemy. And so using a divination system that not only was giving me some sort of information about where I was at internally through my meditative practice, also having that alchemical work that I didn't even realize at the time constantly being entered into my subconscious. Because often I would do the meditation very, very late at night and then do a reading directly after it. And so I was still, in that lucid space while I was doing the rolling of the coins in I Ching. And now looking back at it, I'm very grateful that all of this happened. I feel as though what I've done is built through major repetition and in-depth work a sort of inner map of my subconscious to a degree, um, that I don't always consciously know what's happening, but I'm learning more and more as I go, that I can trust my intuition and that I have programmed my subconscious largely in a way that I trust it. Um, and when I feel if I'm off base, I can do an I Ching reading or something like that and usually get back in the flow of the
Right.
Tao, so to speak. But that's um, pretty much what got me here, the major events that led to this for me.
So you're living right now like in a hermit situation, or
I just mean in the sense of not having as many connections, and feeling very hermit-like. I have a family. I'm in my garage now. My son's in bed. He's 4 years old, and I have a new wife now. This is my second marriage that I'm in, and she has a son. So I'm not a hermit, no. Um, and I also have contact with my father and my sisters and all of that. Uh, but what I used to have and what I have now are two completely different things as far as connections with my family and with friends and all of that. Um, and so, in a sense, I care less and less and less to the point now of what people think and more about whether or not I can personally sign off on whatever course that I'm going down. And I guess with doing this I Ching YouTube scenario that I'm doing, I'm attempting to bring out what I've found for myself that works so great and present it to others so that that's essentially my offering, right?
Yeah.
I was
It
able
was
through a lot of difficult work and a lot of pain to find something that is like a bulwark or a firm foundation that I don't view ever being shaken out from under me. I've looked pretty in depth into the I Ching and how it came about and what it's about and who signs off on it. The likes of Carl Jung and one of my favorites, Terence McKenna, among others, all praise the I Ching very highly. And with my experience of it, none of that's even necessary. But when I see people that are fairly intellectual looking at it very closely, yeah, Carl Jung did the introduction to Wilhelm's commentary on the I Ching himself, and it's incredible what he writes about it. But he highly, highly, highly praised it. He himself asked the I Ching what it thought about him helping introduce it to the English speaking world by translating it into English
okay.
and introducing Wilhelm doing that essentially. Uh, and it had the well, which it described itself as a well. It had a changing line and gave him a supporting hexagram, I believe, as well. But basically, the I Ching to Carl Jung described itself as this deep well that has nourishment that if only it would be accessed by people, then all kinds of good would come about. That it was sort of like a cure for our modern ills in a sense. Um, and that also it was very frustrated that people weren't considering it at all as a source of wisdom to the degree that it had the potential to change humanity.
Okay. Wow. That's wow. I'm just really amazed about the whole yeah, your life in this short time and what it was, where you came and went through and where you are right now, and that you are working now with I and well, I knew, well, knew it's not the right word. I heard about it, but it was like for 15 years or something where I was more in this kind of different kind of how do I get to know myself? And but I didn't went far, or I don't have any skills about it. And yes, I do think too that's the old way of how they describe or found something out. It's a leading path for us that we are can find ourselves too. I that's in my opinion, that's the time area where we're right now, that we are many people, and not only like a short bubble. The whole world is now like finding themselves, and then it's depending on, do I want that or don't I? Or what you said, I think with Helen too, it's the anxious or the frightness to to really see myself. I mean, I think that's the one. Uh, I think afterwards it's like, oh my shit, I am running away from myself, and that's the thing. And so after that, it's like why we are scared about us, to say yes, we have like all the different kind of thoughts, feelings, and whatever, and our energy, but it's all us, all me, and I decide every single moment where I want to go. And but I still have all the spectrum and multidimensional that I could do the other way too. And it's just the consciousness that we are. I think we have everything in us, and to accept that we do have everything, but we also have the control or not control. Yeah, probably it's control uh, to do what we really want to do. What do humans want to do, you know? And they want to, sometimes they want to fight, you know? Sometimes they want to joke or to, you know, it's like with children or others. You don't want to talk the whole time in a really deep conversation. You want to have like laughing and uh, the other experience too. You know, it's well, I at least for me, you know, it's like I want to have all the different kind of um, perspective and feelings, and yeah. So how about you? Do you? I do think you don't. With when you're playing with your child, you're like in this mood too, right? Or how?
What was that?
With your perspective, you know, when you're like playing with your son, uh, then you're not like in this medium or in this stage. Then you're, you know, you're probably playing with him soccer or I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, probably yeah. Tell me about like this other way of living. It's not the other way. We are all, you know, but probably, you know, like I would like to see or feel you in different kind of um, I, I
More of
would
a
like,
personal angle,
yeah,
like
yes.
day to day. Um, I'm a plumber, and my wife is a nurse. She's a hospice nurse, and my son, we his old school just closed, and we moved to a new location, which is really nice. It's right by a river, and so he just recently moved schools as well. So we're all kind of getting accustomed to this new area, uh, and one thing that has been a little bit of a challenge being in a family and being so heavily involved in my work with the I Ching and with meditation and with consciousness and all of that has been to try and balance those two things out and not have it be a scenario where I am so heavily focused on this that, you know, I don't have the ability to maintain relationships in the day-to-day world. But thankfully, my wife is very patient with me, a lot more patient than most people would probably be. Um, but we're very much in love still at this stage. We've been together 4 years now, since
Mm,
2020, 5 years. Yeah. And anyway, something that I've tried to do very heavily is figure out how to integrate deep meditation where you reach sort of a feel of kind of like a bliss state and have that be entered into in just your day-to-day life. And I suppose something that has been helpful in that regard is something that James DeCorn talks about. He is one of the commentators that I read from in my I Ching readings.
mhm,
And he calls his commentary the Gnostic Book of Changes. And so he looks at it from a Gnostic perspective, but he views, and I've researched and found out that Terence McKenna looks at reality in this way too. Um, Reality as being this organism, and that's what we are. And when I think of it in terms of that, it's almost like I have to hold back from accepting what all that means, because you and I having this conversation, it's just an organism with two parts of its body finally coming together and like having an interaction.
Right.
And so it is less to do with meeting you for the first time, but
Hmm.
coming to know a side of myself that I maybe hadn't known before in this way.
Right.
And in that sense, it's almost terrifying to think of in that
Why?
way.
Why do you think it's
Well,
terrifying?
I suppose I'll put it this way. If you can connect with everything because that essentially is what your makeup is, then the things that scare you come along with that. And I guess what you were talking about earlier, that idea of what do you want out of life? Um, it means that how you direct things is very, very important. Uh, I'll relate it to the first time that I took mushrooms. I realized that I couldn't just think about anything. They're really serious about that set and setting, and there's a good reason for it. As soon as you start thinking about one thing, it's like you're there immediately. And
Mm.
you hardly have any control of how in depth you are into that space. It like you're not just looking at it and you maintain a sense of separateness. It's like you and that are the same, or it's in your world very heavily. And so I suppose that's what I mean by it being kind of terrifying. It means that the responsibility that we have for shaping the way we make decisions about the world and about our own lives is very, very, very important. And I guess in comparison to how I grew up with the perspective of there's a being that is guiding this all in a benevolent way, um, it becomes more of the onus is on us to try and make sure that it's no longer just self-development for self-development's sake. It means that there's a certain amount that hangs in the balance that from other perspectives you wouldn't necessarily notice. Um, if we have a larger degree of responsibility with how all of this shakes out in the end, and the way we're dealing with it becomes like really, really dropping the ball on in
Yeah.
a massive way. Um, I do believe that there's guiding influence, you know, but if we don't act on it, then that is a damn shame, especially with how things are now and the projection of the future from a logical, intellectual perspective is quite terrifying. So I guess that's what I mean by terrifying. Feeling this connection with everyone, when you see people bombed in another country, for instance, it's easily to separate that because that's not me. But when everything's you, um, what level of responsibility do you have? And how do you make the most of each moment to have the greatest effect that you possibly can for the greatest good that you possibly can? And so, how it's terrifying, I guess, as well, is um, that amount of responsibility feels like a lot. And um, I don't think it can be taken as lightly as we take life. I think that it is good to take life lightly and have not the world upon your shoulders kind of feel. Um, but when it feels like there's very few people that could potentially have a great influence on the perspective that people have in the world, uh, when they're not heeded, their messages aren't really respected or honored or acted on a large scale, that's
Mm.
terrifying.
Yeah, I do understand what, but I do think I have a different feeling about the responsibility. Probably, I don't know, because one of the thing is for sure that I had my like a burnout, or because it was so much responsibility, not only like for myself, for my family, for my children, for my house, for my work, for my employees, from like from my working situation, the people who are in contact to organize the architecture, how it they are moving together when there's a conflict, and then the persons who are, there were there are so many different kind of persons in the same moment or in the same day who are all interacting. And for myself, it's always like, okay, we can do it like a harmonize. We can
Yeah.
talk to each other, and then it's better. And to lift up and to have it a little bit easier, and I do really think for myself and for all the others, as long as we are trying to fix something or somebody or the world or the universe, then it's like we don't trust ourselves and also the other one, that they are able to lift them up by themselves. We will give them with this kind of interaction the feeling that they need to have this help or the lifting up, and that they cannot do it by themselves. And I'm not talking about to just, walk away and don't see anything and not giving a hand. But giving a hand doesn't mean to let the hand there, so more like, oh, I can see you. You are just in trouble right now, and give them not, we have like different words for it in German, because in German language, I'm really consciousness about the words I say. I'm not in this in the English way, so probably I do not. I would probably sometimes take another word if I would know it.
Yeah.
But what I try to say with that, it's more to give them the confidence that they can do it and hold the space to let them, you know? And I think that's one of the German things. Just let it be, let be, and let them. And that's what I learned just for like a year ago. Let the children, and my children's, they're now like 20 and 21, 22. So there are adults, right? But there's just a really different kind of letting go and really let them have the space. And that's what, and I thought it was really interesting with your mother that she was keeping the whole construction, I would say, or the whole, keeping together. But that's the point. Uh, I feel that's the same thing, and I had to let it go, everything, because I just couldn't do anything anymore. And so I had to let go, and which was really, I guess, terrifying for my children too. Not guess, I know we're talking about it. But that gave us the space to find out that we are one, another one. And now we're getting connected again, get a new kind of relationship, but not in that way. I found out it's like when I giving love the whole or nurturing the whole time, then you are like, you are used to get the love, and that's why you cannot produce your love inside yourself. It's like my thinking is like when you are used to something, you don't remember anymore how to get it working.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, that's what I do think. And so I was wondering how you what you're looking for when you're now yeah, grow up your child, your son, and what is really important for you that he is learning, or what kind of space do you give him, or yeah.
He's pretty wild, I would say. He he, for an example, will randomly take his clothes off outside and go to the bathroom in the yard. For instance, he jumps off things as high as he can. But we try and let him have as much space as possible while still maintaining a certain amount of societal boundaries. But I really enjoy watching him grow up, and I don't like to intervene too much to stop him from doing things unless, there's a danger to his or someone else's safety. Um, but I think that on a societal level, often we intervene too much and try and direct things. It's nice to see how things play out, and I think our role is more of protection and sort of discovering what this person is and what they embody and how they are in the world. And that's something I learned from him. Um, it's different when you realize how many expectations are on you and how little freedom you have to just be like that anymore. But it's been very good for me to have a child again. My other kids, the youngest is 9, so there's a bit of a split between them. And I'm glad to enter into, parenthood all over again like this. It's illuminating. And I feel like there's a difference in how I'm coming about it this time around, which is a lot more um, open, I
Mm.
suppose. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I like what you said. I feel like when in doubt, allow.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think there is a mixture of um, work and effort as well as uh, ease and allowing that takes place. And I guess that's what the I Ching for me is all about, is kind of finding out the perfect
The
time,
flow.
yeah, to do which thing, because the universe can be acting in favor of something at one point and sometimes not. So uh, it's being in Christianity, my entire upbringing, what pops to mind is that Bible verse that says, there's a time for everything under heaven, a season for uh, to live, to die, to kill, to heal, all of those things.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
so it's almost like it's describing the Tao in that way. And if you knew what time to do what thing, that pretty much makes all the difference. And why, and how, um,
Y-
and how you approach the moment, if you're trying to manipulate it, or if you're just learning what it's doing, like in a river, for instance, you don't want to paddle against the current.
Right.
You try and navigate downstream and just avoid dangers and see what's, if when I'm floating down a river, I like to do as little as possible. Unless I used to do whitewater kayaking, and that was super fun, but only for a short period of time. Um, but yeah, you get in touch with what the river is doing. And I think that we try and control the river too much and dam it up and move it around and get as much as we can out of it, rather than trying to live in harmony and finding out what life is doing. How is life lifing us?
Mm.
And being less in our heads about all of it. Um, Something that Terence McKenna said at one point brings me back to that idea of having a certain amount of responsibility. He put a high emphasis on poets, artists, and people like that, to point a way forward. He said that if poets and artists can't find the way, then a way can't be found, is how he broke it down. That was his perspective.
Mm.
And he said that if we're not finding out a course for humanity, for instance, then everything else we do is a sort of dithering while Rome burns. And those words almost echo in my head, especially now with how the world is, just looking at the news, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, so I suppose with my time here, I would like to act as much as possible uh, towards the end that something beneficial for all can come about, and whatever I can do to add to that, I would like to do, and that's brought me into what I'm doing now. I don't necessarily think that I'm doing it the best way it could be done. uh, but it's the way that I do it that kind of
Yeah.
flows through me the way it flows. And so I'm not super concerned about it being in any particular way that someone might want it to be.
Yes.
What I'm most concerned about is that I'm honoring the way that it's showing up through me and not trying to intervene too incredibly much.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing. And you're just doing a really great open space so that we can get in touch and see how it works and to get this kind of experience. And that's what I do think it's so important to to be open for all the different kinds of use and techniques. And I do think it's so important to show the different kind of techniques we can use. We are all humans, we are all different, and everything works different. Uh, but to show that, and so I was just amazed, and I was wondering, you have this wood thing, how it's called? Please tell me.
Yeah, it's a staff. It's Rowan wood. Um, and this morning glory wrapped up of it. So it grew and it chases the sunlight. So it wraps in a very particular way up the wood. And it basically really cinches down on it so that when the wood grows, it's forced to kind of grow in this spiral way. Anyway, I picked this staff up. I kind of blend a little bit of Druidry, mainly because I was trying to connect with stones. When I was a kid, I had a rock collection that my parents helped me start, or maybe I just did it on my own. I don't know how it came about, but I'm still very much that way. We'll go down to the river and I'll come back with pockets full of rocks.
Great.
Yeah,
And then,
and we have a bunch of rocks out front, and I'm always sorting through them. The latest ones that I've got are this one is super cool.
oh yes.
But they often look like kind of
Yeah.
triangular, like a kind of dragon head kind of look. This one's pretty cool, but I like to hold them and feel the energy in them.
Yes.
There was a time though that some of them that I had felt almost like they were drawing energy from me rather than giving them back. And then I started finding out that in Druidry they had 7 sacred trees, and so I decided I wanted to move to something else that maybe would feel a little better with the energy in my hands to hold and experience. And I connected with these various different 7 sacred tree woods of
Mhm.
Druidry right off the bat. And anyway, so I'm a bit of a collector of various woods, especially the ones that various cultures find sacred. And I like to feel the energy in them and the difference between them. And then it's almost you can associate certain ones, and I'm not sure how heavily this is accurate, but certain groups associate certain trees with certain planets, for instance. So it's almost like, for instance, this is hazel, and its association is Mercury. In fact, Hermes Trismegistus, um, the caducus staff that has the snakes winding up it,
Mhm.
that staff is supposed to be hazel that's made out of. And that symbol also is very a Mercury type symbol. of that uh, communication between all the gods was Mercury's job in uh, what was that, Greek? Is that, I think that's Greek, a Greek deity. Um, but having the idea of the energy behind it and the idea of a deity even behind that, behind the planet that it's associated with, it feels as though you're connecting with a part of the cosmos in a very specific way with a very specific energy with the different types of wood. Rowan wood, between rowan wood and black thorn, this is a
Mhm.
black thorn wand. My friend Patrick in Ireland makes these for me. He's got an Etsy store, so he makes them for a lot of people.
Wow.
This one's particularly cool, but they're supposed to be in Druidic lore the most protective of woods. And rowan wood has the planetary associations of Mercury and the sun. And blackthorn has Saturn and Mars. But when I first dealt with blackthorn, it made my hand tingle, and I couldn't ever do it for very long. I couldn't hold it for very long. And Rowan, however, has they call it a quickening wood. There's all the kinds of cool names that they call this wood in Ireland. And I can feel it too. When you spin the staff, it feels like you're raising energy from the earth, especially because how it's spiraled. It
Mhm.
feels that way when you stand by it. It
Yeah, you can
feels,
see it too through the
yeah,
videos. Yeah, you when you do it, it's like it's amazing how it. Yeah, it's the feeling comes through the your video. Yes.
I've realized that, and that's one of the things that fascinates me is being able to feel the energies from people just through their YouTube videos. For different tarot readers, it's almost like you start tuning into their frequency or
Yeah.
resonance in a
Mhm.
way. And that's what I've done with wood and with stones and with the I Ching. I suppose what's been happening that I didn't necessarily consciously know is that I'm kind of getting a framework or feel for the universe through woods and stones and tarot readers and different religious perspectives. And what I've landed in, I don't think is, every single person needs to be a Taoist that mixes that with Druidry and I Ching readings. But that's what my finally led me into that kind of a area that really works for me a lot. And so I guess I'm glad that you feel that and that you can sense that. I think, and it makes sense because I sense it in other people as well.
Yeah, and that's why I really, that's one of the things why I want to do this interview. Not only like the ones who are, watching you and found you on YouTube, and but also to feel you much more that you are not only this,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
are
yeah.
on this, if somebody who never ever got in touch with something like that, it's like, oh, they are like, oh, do they do have a real life? It's like
Yeah.
this kind of thoughts, or that there's like that spirituality, consciousness learning. That's, it's just involving and development, and that's nothing else. And I do think with the higher you go, when you feel your energy, then you start to realize that you get informations from the energy, and you're starting to ask, okay, what kind of energy do I, how does it change, exchange with the wood, with the people, with the universe, with everything, the air, the stones, and everything has energy. And how do we connect with it? And what kind of knowledgement do we get from it? And that's, I think, where we are to figure out how to get connected and understand or interpret, do this telepathic. Yeah, how
Yeah.
how you say it? Can you say it the right?
Telepathic.
Telepathic.
Telepathic. Yeah.
See, I get now the English lesson.
I never thought that was a thing, and now it's almost like maybe I just wasn't sensing what it meant. But yeah, I definitely feel um, people and their energy and different things in different ways, and it's a form of communication that um, energetic that it's almost like you don't need much else. Uh,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have kind of like a web of that going on. I feel like if we all felt what it means to be in that kind of Indra's net web of reality in maybe a quantum connected kind of feel, then we would have less beef with each other.
Yeah, that's right. That's when uh I thought if we all would be like only telepathic, no words, and see just the real inside, then it would be just easy. The words do it so different because we have so much layers around it. Not when I say one sentence, you can hear the words how the words are, or you want to feel what I'm trying to tell you. And then when you're trying to feel what I want to explain, then we have to be careful not to fall in an illusion to think that we can feel, and what's the word? And I found that out, and it was like, oh my, that's why we have words, not only like telepathy. No, I was like more this kind of person. I'm listening, I'm really good in listening and asking questions, but and see what they don't show me, and I can feel, I can see through the whole system. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, how consciousness are they? Because when you're talking with the soul level, but they are here with their mind level, you cannot talk with the soul because they don't understand what you're talking about and they don't want to listen. And it's the same with me too. I mean, that's human. I
Yeah.
probably will see something or, know something about myself, but I probably don't know. And probably I'm not ready to hear it right now. It's like the same stuff when we see people or humans and you just know, oh, why do they do it like this? Why do it? Why make it so hard, or so harsh or so complicated? And it's like, and you can try, or let it be. Just let them find out. It's their kind of game or not game. It's not right.
Mhm.
It's their kind of finding out. So that's what I found out about the energy way and the word dialogue. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. Yes.
Definitely.
Did you ever heard about the 12 dimensions, like in the consciousness way?
I don't think so. Um maybe in terms of like chakras potentially, but maybe not. Maybe those don't relate.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just curious. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So what do you think about the new world? What's going on right now with the um, KI and what do you have? What kind of feelings do you have with that? Or what kind of feelings, thoughts, and yeah.
I think that planetarily and astrologically, the time is ripe for us to get over ourselves, for lack of a better way to put it. Uh, and like you termed it, bridge some gaps between each other and do some inner work if necessary, which I think is always pretty much necessary. But if we're all dealing with what Carl Jung called like the collective unconscious, and we all have a tap into that, then we all share a lot of the same fears and a lot of the same insecurities. And so sometimes what's interesting in a movie or a story and what it makes it so compelling is the most specific thing can be the most universal. Like you asked me about my life, more about, me bringing rocks up from the river with my pockets bulging full and that kind of thing. That's, a specific thing for me, but it fleshes out my personality and my embodiment, right? In a way where it's easy to relate to it. And in that way, if we're able to all pretty much release some of the layers that we've put on by fitting into society and that kind of thing, and jumping through hoops, cultural hoops, um, if we were allowed and would allow ourselves to break some of those down. Essentially, what I'm describing is the backwards work of the sages, where
Mm.
they move in reverse. And most everyone else wants to add to their knowledge and learning and all of that kind of thing. But what the sage does is erases all of that and goes back to
Mm.
before
Yeah, I
that
do.
any of those layers came on. And what you were talking about the child thing, like, um, it's easier, in my opinion, for the Tao to work through people when they're not trying to make sure that it turns up in any particular way. And if we're being lived by an organism, as it were, which is maybe what would be behind all of our eyes or behind our understanding of reality, if this is all one organism, if that concept of reality, let's say for a moment that that's true, um, the less we get in the way of that, the better. And the more we learn what the difference is between um, ways to stay in line versus that sage's science of moving in reverse and shucking off those layers, uh, I think we're going to realize I really don't know what, to be honest. Um,
But
I
is like,
myself, I myself am incredibly curious of what life would be like if what we're kind of talking about now, that idea of telepathic communication,
mm,
um, if that were universal and widespread. And I mean, with so many people being online now, it is to a degree, but I think the way we harness it can just build layers rather than strip them back. The more you're exposed to more people, the more it's easy to be nervous about that and feel like you have to put on a face in some way, whether or not you'll be accepted and all of those things. But stripping things back and being as specific of an individual as you are really makes the cake. It really brings the flavor into it. Without that, everything's the same. And it
mm,
is, in a sense, we're all connected at the very least. Um, but not in the kind of way where society says, this is beauty standards, for instance,
mm,
or you're cool if you drink this beer, or whatever, or this form of government is the best, or
yeah,
whatever it may be, or, you know, whose
like,
land we're on, or whatever it is.
yeah, I
If
know.
if we don't epitomize and make a big deal out of things that life isn't actually about, and
Mm,
those illusions are kind of dropped, it would be better sooner than later. And I feel like we have a lot going for us when it comes to that, as far as cosmos speaking. I feel like the time is very, 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 very ripe. But I don't think it's forced on people. And that's where I get back to the responsibility side of things, is that um, if we don't export our responsibility onto a president, leader, uh, whomever, um, and we realize that we're shaping the world that we live in,
Mhm.
and just jumping on board a ship of any one person and their perspective, everyone's going to be wrong at some point. The point is to find that within yourself. And in the readings that I do, often the Taoist I Ching by Liu Yiming. He was a Taoist adept and he wrote this in 1796. But he talks about, um, geez, I had a train of thought and then I just boop, dislodged.
So you were like from the politician Tao and
Yeah.
leading the way.
What did he say? I totally lost it. Well, so maybe there's a reason. Maybe it'll come back around.
It is
uh,
all reason, you know. Yeah.
Essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say with less long-winded is that I have a lot of hope that things will go radically different than they look like they're going right now. And I don't know what that looks like. And I think it would be hard to describe because I think it is radically different than what anyone could maybe expect. I personally feel an urgency for that to happen sooner than later, with it feeling like kind of a doomsday clock
Mm.
attached to the events that are going on, and just our accelerated rate of destroying the planet that we're living on, which we need in order to remain here. So um, there's like this feel of how do we get everybody to realize through the illusions that we're all under on a grand scale and just come to know themselves. And it doesn't have to be a way where uh, it's externalized at all. If we have access to, like Carl Jung talks about, to this collective unconscious,
Mm.
then it's really a going inward. Um, and one of the hexagrams that I just listened to recently, it talked about a well, the well, I think it's hexagram 48, but it talked about to get to really the heart of the matter, it's at the bottom of a deep, dark well. And
Mm.
that's where I think the fear for most people comes in, and even for myself, um, is that that kind of feel of not knowing, even when you look in the mirror, what's behind your own eyes.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
it's alarming sometimes. And so the tendency to neglect going into those subconscious spaces, I think we all keep ourselves busy to avoid doing that. Um, but I think that's where the potential lies, honestly. I think from my perspective, I feel like largely the way things can be righted in their course is if everyone would turn inward and keep going until they
Mm.
realize that there's not a bottom that they can even discover, really, that
Yes.
it's not a thing that you're going to find. It's almost like you're going to find the hole through it that you thought maybe you would find. Um,
And I do think with the feeling like with the plague, uh, that's where uh, in the slow way, it's like getting through your fears and fears, layers to go inward. And when I went through this black hole, and that was one of my scariest thing, not to know if I would come back with my mind. As with my, I mean, for sure, I knew that my body would be there, But what happens with my consciousness, or do I stay in this kind of yeah, kind of stage? And it was this kind, one of this kind. And I do think it always makes the fear, what we have as a human inside of us, to go through this fear and to experience what does this fear do with us. And we get more deeper in the dark where it's nothing, like you have a closed room and there is no light. And for my experience, from the time when I got from this transformation or consciousness, I started to have a really black bedroom. I needed to have it black. But there was still a little bit light through the windows or to the keyhole, or, somewhere where was light. And then I started to do it like black. But it was then like you didn't see anything, but I felt good. And now it's like, um, now I can see in the black the light in myself because I can light up the room, even there is no light. And that's the amazing. But it took me 5 years, I didn't even know that it works. And that's the uh, when you're getting to this black experience, and I do think it's a feeling when you really let loose. Just as and it sounds like, okay, just let loose. Yeah, sure. But you, you don't let loose, And it's uh yeah, and I think it's a couple of kind of different kind of experience in your life when you had there was no way to not let go. And all these together to keep and then bring it together into oneness and go with that deep. And that's how I experienced, and for myself, the duality or polarity where we are in. It's just think how uh, we have access to see white, black, but it's not. If there would be in everything no emotions, no nothing, no emotions, and that at the moment we are moving, and situation which we say it's bad or good or whatever, uh, and we would have no knowing about how it should be or how it is or how it feels. What is then the stage when we go really, I mean, try to neutralize ourselves and see it from the, okay, there is no feeling what was before, what I had before, or when it's always getting, neutralized, and see it from the moment. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, to understand situations and not to put another layer on it at the same time. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, it feels, in my experience of what you're describing, it's almost like just inching closer and closer and closer to that, and largely circumstantially by feeling like you're put in a position to really need to know if there's firm ground to stand on anywhere. And then it creates a certain amount of like constantly digging. And then the space widens up more and more. And so you feel less and less secure, and slowly adapting to that being the norm, kind of. And I honestly don't know if that ever ends, to be honest. And I'm fine if it doesn't. and I guess the way I'm moving through life is a feeling of just continually trying to widen and open up and have less expectations with how life shows up, and yet, being embodied and having so much at stake as far as uh, people that I love, and wanting to, live a full life and all of those things. You can have both. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a certain amount of detachment that is necessary, which I think facing death can be something that gives you that, but also certainly like an alchemical process of burning out pollutants, so to speak. And they talk about don't even let a grain of dust uh, on this lens. Um, that you're almost walking through life holding this sacred whole that
Mm.
you're not going to let anything and nothing could obscure it, but the hole just keeps widening and widening and widening, and that's kind of maybe also the terrifying aspect of it, is what does that mean for the individual and the person that um like you said, are you going to lose your personality altogether, and what
Mm.
happens with your relationships if that happens? um you're able to make it in this world because of your connections with people, and what if you literally go crazy, just continually widening?
Mm.
And that's kind of been the dance for me, is trying to figure out how to, nervous system wise, it almost feels like I can't retract anymore past a certain point for too long. Um, and yet I feel as though there's still a lot of opening that's possible.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, what I wonder about where humanity is going, is what does that look like? If everyone were to completely widen open, and there to be that spaciousness that is behind everything, and that were coming through, I kind of think that it would look very similar to, how the Tao moves and how that's described.
Mm.
Um, but what does that look like for all of humanity? And will we even use words?
Yeah. Well, I have this kind of feeling that the earth, as the experience in this human body, and with consciousness, acknowledgement, what we are all going through right now in different kind of depth. Um, but I do think it opened up, I mean, the whole, every dimensions. We are now going through all the dimensions there are. And so we get this knowledge like the KI. We have now the knowledge to ask whatever, and it goes like this to get put all the whatever we thought or put definitions on it, we can get it in a second or less than a second. And so we got now the whole spectrum where we were in the past to know and where do we want to go now and what we are doing with all this acknowledgement. And for myself, it's like what when you get my experience, when you get lose everything from the body mindset or from the is what is left when you let loose everything, it's your love, your holy love, what you have connected. And in the outside, in the world outside, in the working outside, it's the experience what you have got, the acknowledgement and the experience, but not through the books, but like the experience what you lived through, what kind of yeah, experience what you felt and with your acknowledgement and how it was. And with that mindset, it's like, okay, and now we have everything and nothing at all. As in, it's like everything, nothing at the same time. And what does it mean for us? And then asking you for what does it mean for you? You know, what's for you the most important thing? And then see that's for everybody something else, you know? And it's like, okay, and but I do think still it's the seeing each other, hearing and listening, and feeling each other. And it doesn't matter in what kind of religion or whatever where we are, it's always to, and it doesn't matter in what kind of even the persons I really dislike and I don't want to get connected. But even they, if if I open up and really listen to them and watch them and ask them and feel them, uh, they are feeling good. You know, it's not like, and it's my who is saying that. Yeah, but do I want to give them energy? You know, it's like, but that's the thing. It's, do I have a right to say what is good or bad? And that doesn't mean that I'm uh, not to be an active or for stand my truth, but to that the truth for themselves too, you know. And I do think it's to keep our mindset clean, acting outside clean, not clean, but in a neutral way, not if it's possible. And that doesn't mean to go and give not help or do the power what we have in this stuff which is good or we think it is could be good because we if we don't do the whole circle, and that's what I mean, you have to watch the whole circle from the zero to whatever layers to go back to the point. And what does it mean then? But then you would think like, if I act, if I go outside, then I'm already doing something, you know, I'm moving my energy. And is it good or is it bad? Do I hit the ant or the bird? Or, you know, it's like I love birds, I love animals, but I sit in the car. Do I know what, you know, it's normal. But we think, you know, that I don't know what kind of uh, animals are underneath the wheels, you know, or on the and it's
Yeah.
like, but that there it is, okay, you know, and not that we feel sorry if we killed a mouse, whatever, you know, but
Yes.
in the garden, oh no, a cat is, I, you know, it's that's how I, well, I do it, you know. But when I realized it, it's just we're moving from one consciousness, but from one place to another place where it is okay, and in the other place it is not okay. And so, yeah, what? And that's the thing. I think it's really, I think it's to understand that we cannot handle everything and just to realize we will be never ever perfect. And to, you know, to do whatever we can do best and to realize that everybody in their opinion are doing the best. You know, it's like in their opinion they're doing all the best. So, and I guess 10,000 of people don't think that I'm doing the best, you know, and or you are, but that's the opinion, you know. It's like, and if we give up to think that they don't do the best way, probably, you know, who knows? I don't know, you know. So, to be more open, yeah. Even if it's not at the moment not understandable. But that's probably the point too, because we never ever really talked to other persons who have a really different mindset, you know. And that's the challenge, I think, to open up even to totally different mindsets. Yeah. Yeah.
I think our first instinct is to just really, really judge somebody by how they look or how they come across right away. And it's hard to get out of that once you have that initial perspective. But I think that digging down into ourselves and you and I doing that together, I notice as we talk about that space that I feel like we've kind of enlarged it by doing that in a way where that space is now between you and I. You know what I mean? In a conscious way. And
Mhm.
that pool feels larger, if you
Right.
will. And um, bringing it out and describing it with words that we'll never do, obviously, but pointing at it, there's sacredness. And maybe that is partly what this is all about, you know, us communicating. And then what Helen and I were talking about is pointing to that and just nonstop pointing to it, and more people pointing to it in their own terms and their own language, because
Right.
I use a language very specific to me. I speak
Mhm.
English, yes, but even apart from the language that I speak, my internal language and the way I see the world is very specific to me. And so, and yet you can make yourself, especially energetically and just how through a conversation you can kind of get a feel for what the person is saying, even if they don't use the words you would use. But enough of us doing a sort of pointing at that the best way we know how. Um,
Right. Yeah.
I think the more people slip into that well,
Yes.
the better we'll be. But it is a scary well to slip into because it does mean a lot of dissolving happens. But really, we're all gonna die. So uh, the secret that they say, right, is to die before you die.
But
And
was
so
your
maybe,
then, sorry that I disrupt you, but your
no problem.
experience, was it then more like uh, from the from yourself or more from the outside, or was it both, or um, what kind of experience, uh, what would you say, which kind of experience would you say was one of the most blowing up moments, but also to in the next time to get into yourself. Yeah.
I've done a lot of different rituals. Um, this, I'll give an example. This panther here, it's a Zuni fetish carving, and
Okay.
it's this panther with it's got tied on its back a little
Mm-hmm.
turquoise arrowhead. And I connected with panther spirit and wanted to symbolize that in some way. So I ordered this on eBay a long time ago. And when it arrived, I did a meditation with it and did a whole thing. But I've done various rituals for myself that I just felt compelled to do at the time for whatever reason. It felt like your ears starting to ring, and it's like this building moment where all of a sudden now we're doing this. But the time that was the most intense, that I felt like a click in my head, I had a bunch of energy raising up and it felt like it was just pushing kind of like right here and being really, really, really intense. And I couldn't uh, get away from it. And it was agitating in a way, but also like it felt like I was on the verge of something. But I don't know why it ended up being this way, but I did a ritual with our dog. She's an Australian Shepherd named Tato.
Mhm.
And um, I wasn't always very nice to her. And when we got her, and she looks at me with her eyes. And when I look at her, um, I can tell that she's more conscious than I gave her credit for in that moment where this ritual enacted. But basically, we had this vitamin D. So, your body makes vitamin D through sunlight and all this stuff. So, part of it was like, okay, you and I, the dog and I, are going to take vitamin D and we're going to drink sunlight, was the idea. And it was just all of a sudden, this was the moment that I was in. And so I had her have it. I had to put it in some cheese or something. I can't remember what, but I tried to get her to have that. And I drank mine. And then I talked to her and I told her I was sorry for how I've treated her. And when I was talking to her in that way, the way she looked at me meant like she looked like she had a hard time. And it might have just been in my voice and her feeling that. But what I saw reflected in her eyes was that feel of not necessarily being ready to forgive me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then after doing the ritual with my dog, drinking this vitamin D and her having it, and then shaking her paw with a sort of like a pact, like a click happened in my head, and that energy was relieved. And it was almost like it didn't matter necessarily what form the ritual took, as long as this like building pressure and anticipation was somehow acted on. And for me, I guess a freeing of guilt in some way was sort of put to that moment. And so it may have just because of that could potentially have embodied, in essence, all guilt that I experienced. But for whatever reason, it felt like there was a certain amount of things anchoring me back from maybe feeling like I could morally accept the idea of passing some sort of threshold. Um, and once I sort of enacted this pact with our dog, and she went from a certain amount of like not wanting to forgive me to forgiving me kind of feel. And like I felt like a pact had been made. It kind of like freed me. It was almost like that kind of like the Christian concept, I guess, of like having a guilt be removed off me. And so that downward pressure, maybe keeping me that self-limiter chip or whatever, I don't know what it was. But after that, I kind of went a little bit insane. I felt like I was God, basically, and
Mhm.
talked like it, and was just everything was intense and a lot. And I couldn't be living life without just this immense amount of energy that I didn't know how to control very well.
Did you saw it
But
right
that
now?
was definitely the most significant thing.
Did you see what just happened for when you were talking? I don't know,
Uh,
but in my video, it stopped. The energy was so high that the picture didn't came through. So that was
mhm.
really amazing, and that's what the energetic way it was like. But I could hear your voice, but the picture just freezed, and it's like the to going into these moments where really high energy is there. Amazing. Yes.
Yeah, I am thankful that I still have my marriage because I was basically a megalomaniac after that for quite some time. And looking back at it, I feel like I entered a certain amount of psychosis for sure. I didn't know how to deal with all of that. And it did feel like I was just everything and that there was no separation and that um, how we view our pets and all of that stuff is like, I own this animal. Just
Mm.
all of that stuff didn't feel legit at all. And yeah, I guess there's been a certain amount that I've attempted to integrate the two, um, and come to some sort of a balance, and not feel like I'm God in the sense where I scare myself and others, and am just walking around in a state of psychosis.
Mm.
But I think maybe it just took a certain amount of time to kind of fucking get used to that space, and maybe have it kind of like percolate down or something. I don't know exactly, but that was my experience of it, and it sounds funny to describe to people because like entering into some sort of pact with your dog sounds interesting, for sure. Um, but I think the major part of it is my own permission slip, to allow myself passage, I guess.
Yeah, and I do think the story or the experience, it's like letting us know, feel you. And I think these are one of the most important um, ways how to communicate, because then I could feel you. I almost could see your dog and feel your dog, and and got to this your experience. And that's the amazing stuff, which is then, what it makes. I think these kind of stories are not, I think stories is such a not nice word. I don't know. Uh, but it makes it so touchable. And that's the thing, to touch you. Yeah, that's the thing. You with this, I could touch you and I could feel you, and I could see you, in not like see, but see you. And I think that's the one of the most thankful moments, when I'm allowed to see and really feel and get in touch with you. Yes.
We're very, very similar in that way. What's one of the things that I love most about life is deep talk, so to speak. And I don't, if I have someone to talk to that's willing to go as deep as possible, that's the space I myself like to be in. And so having the ability to do that with others is wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Something that
you.
also helped bring that about too is that I heard at one point that Australian shepherds, Aboriginal tribes in Australia, viewed Australian shepherds as one of the highest forms of spirit animals that are
Mhm.
available. And I see that having an Australian shepherd, or I mean, you could say almost any dog at all, uh, or any pet, any animal, a tree, just
Mhm.
living in the world at all. If you look at anything close enough, you don't have a label that you can really
Mhm.
put on it. It's like the feeling of slipping into sacredness almost against your will. You're just like, oh, okay, here we are now.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the difference between their concept, and that's something I value, is the idea of a spirit animal. And yet I live with a dog that an Aboriginal tribe in Australia viewed as like one of the highest sacred animals, and I treat her like a pet.
Yes.
So it's just the kind of like really obscure way we disconnect from things, and it's
Yeah, you're right.
not healthy. It means that we treat things with disrespect, and we treat ourselves with disrespect because of that, just because um, we can't sustainably pave a path of disrespect. And that's what it feels like we do when everything is so individualized. There can be a way to honor individuality, um, but that brings us back to the understanding of ultimate unity. Kind of like the idea of the specificity of things is the most universal. But I feel as though we're being lost in the specificity and which specificity is right or which one, um, if you get my drift. How about
Yeah,
for
I get
you?
the drift totally.
I would
Excuse me?
love to hear if you have a similar experience that would be the epitome.
Yeah.
Is this not the
I
time or
know
space?
there. Yeah. The tower space was actually there were like two. Well, first I would tell you not a tower space, but it was just an unbelievable space. And after that, the tower space, the first one was like when I decided to go to the education for shamanic, and I was like having all these, evening nights and be with myself and talking, and I get answers. But it was this consciousness about. I mean, everybody is talking in their head and giving them answers. How you do it, you know. And but I was then somehow, really often talking to somebody, but it doesn't felt at the moment that I really was talking to somebody. And when I went the first time to this education place, and there were just a group who wants to make, were there for the weekend for ayahuasca, and so we were sitting outside, kind of introducing, and and then she said her name, and it was like my name, and it was, do we know us? And I said, no, but we know us, right? So yes, but we didn't know, and it was like, and then we were like talking like two, three sentences, and it was like, oh, we were meeting up in the in the astro room. We were talking about, and then we were like, what we were talking about, about the blue persons and all the, all the stuff, and it was like, yeah, you're that was the amazing stuff, and it was before ayahuasca, so it wasn't in that it before everything started. Where I say there were no uh, other stuff invited, So that was one of where I thought, oh my God, great. And then at that weekend, I was my first shamanic education, and there we learned how to do this healing procession, and he opened up the room, and it was really it was just amazing power, which was, oh, that was just unbelievable. And he worked with another shamanic too, and then we did these healing sessions, and my experience, and I think I hardly told somebody like this, only like my daughter or my sister, but it was like when she did this healing, and I just knew it would happen because okay, sorry, that's the woman, that's me. I'm sometimes in not the right direction. But what I want to say first, when I did this education and I was talking to him, and he asked me if I have any experience or did I do anything, and I said no, I don't have, and I don't know why, but I know I have to, I should do it. And then he said, okay, and then I said, like, and I do think you are strong enough. And it was like, well, that's great, Anke. You have no experience, and you tell him, I think you are strong enough. How dare can you say something So that's what I was thinking. So now going back to this experience, and then this happened, and it was what I thought. It not what I thought. It was really heavy, and it felt like where I had to let loose myself to stay alive, that I will not get hurt with my body. And my whole body was crumpling like in these movies where you and I knew, and I was just knowing, okay, Anke, be just relaxed, relax. And I knew, I mean, I could see, feel, or, how my body moved. And it was like, no, relaxing and did stuff what humans would not could do. And I just knew, no, I stay here. I'm relaxed. Everything can get out. And so that was a really hard, precious experience. And but then when it was over, it was like, oh my God, to be free. And so that was one. No, that is, I think, the greatest part I I felt to be free again. Yes, and there were other steps too after that too. No, going deeper, but this was, I think, one of the heaviest and perspective, and the others where they were talk. It was a real special moment for everybody because it that why because I went through that, they realized how that it is there. Even we don't want to talk about it, but that it is possible. Right. So that was my experience. Yeah. So I would say.
It's hard. I apologize for putting you on the spot. I don't mean to do that. I sense and feel sometimes bringing forward really, 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 really impactful or powerful moments, especially if they're times where we feel out of control. For instance, I've not participated in a ayahuasca ceremony myself. I have always wanted to. Um, but to parade your experience around for other people to think their perspective about feels like it lessens the sacredness of it. So um, I don't mean to bring you into a space of having your particular experience needed to be shared if you didn't want that. So I apologize.
Oh no, I think it should be talking about it because that's the thing, we're not talking about it. And even the church or the priests who are, can do it, and it's coming more and more out that they are doing it in their way. And that's the energetic hope, or the spirit which can do it. You need to open this room or to get this connection to do this. And with my experience now as a healer or working with the shamanic healing tools, well, that's, to get in this kind of darkness, or to get that, you have to hold really strong a room. And for myself, I do it in a different way. And I do know that how he did it. And I'm not sure if it's just a mindset in myself, or if it's real, but I do think because men have this other power. I mean, and it's like when we sit next each other, then I know you are stronger. Even I think I'm stronger, but I know you are stronger. I can tell that, I'm stronger. But if you hit me, no, you will be stronger. It's like there is no mindset needed. It's just real. Men are from their physics stronger. And I do think when the darkness or the energy is that dark, you need to have men to get them out. And women are cannot, and it's not in a bad way. And it's not that I do think there are women who are having the really strong energy, but I also think I'm wondering with what kind of energies are they working, you know? And I do think men can hold this kind of room stronger than women does. And it's just probably because of the body too, It's like we have, for that, I can do it more soften, I can go through the whole system and be so kind that you will not feel that I'm doing something, in a really soft, loving, nurturing way, And the men are more like the clear way. Let's take it out. Don't, yeah, like, but in a loving way too, That's, yeah. So,
I I thought of the name for my thing, my channel as Tao Druidry. But what's interesting when I looked into that later about the meaning of each of those words, Druidry um, has the root word in it that also means oak, an oak tree, but also
oh,
means door. And Tao is like the way. So what I envision in that is a door on the way. And so that's kind of in kind of an astral way, I imagine my role, if you want to call it that, is standing in a doorway and just keeping it open.
mhm. Yes, and that's wonderful. And that's one of the really great scenes and words coming back to your YouTube channel, explaining your sense why you titled it like this, and to open up and to be open. And that's a really loving and wonderful, yes, I think ending too. And so I would close this room then, and it showed in the kind of switching, it's like, and so is there something you would share, or you have, I will give you to have the last words and say at that moment, yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Ryan, that you had this deep talking and really close talking. And thank you very much.
I will say that I think in Taoism, the feminine is the most highlighted, to be honest. It calls it the mysterious female or the pass. And it's that concept of that openness. And essentially, uh, from the beginning of what kind of energy all of the I Ching was birthed from my understanding, is this goddess, and I've forgotten her name, but some goddess of a lake. But so working with the I Ching and Taoism, it feels like a very feminine energy behind it. And so coming from a Christian background with this very masculine energy, and then coming into a space with a very feminine energy, um, in an alchemical sense, trying to figure out how those interplay is uh, interesting to say the least. Thank you yourself for being interested in this conversation at all and wanting to reach out to us from Helen and my conversation. Uh, I thought that we covered some good ground myself and that some interesting things came out. And you and I have had much longer time, and this has been very rewarding conversation for me. And I would love to have further conversations in the future. And also have the ability to have something like this opened up to where that idea of the moon reflecting in several different pools of water could be a thing that we could bring out of the woodwork and have all these pools gathered that were all reflecting the same moon and see what that looks like. And when you see it in another, it helps guide a way for yourself to be able to navigate that internal space within your own self and try and find your own internal well. And I think that's really what we need. Um, I think people are drawn towards religions and spirituality because they sense that. They have a whiff of that breeze from that dark space. And if you hold that to the fore and you really, 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 really just epitomize that, and nobody's egos or way they want to gear the conversation or anything like that. If what we're about is something greater than us, then I love that you provided a space to honor that and to bring that to the fore. So I very much appreciate you for doing that. And I would love to have this be kind of like a to be continued scenario where more people could get involved and that we can see ourselves reflected in each other. And to be really cheesy about it, walk each other home, so to speak. But
Yes,
I
let's do it.
personally love that concept. So
Yes,
I
definitely.
guess that's what I would say.
Uh, thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
William, and thank you for these really powerful words at the end. And you are just perfectly right to see and mirror each other and walk together home. That's great. I get chills. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was nice
So,
meeting you.
yeah, bye.
Bye.